So we really feel proud that we are getting so positive feedback from everybody. Like June 3rd, we have started with game industry. With the gaming industry, when it's blooming so much across the globe, especially and during the COVID situation as well, when things were getting locked, gaming was one subsector of media and entertainment which was going higher and higher and higher. So looking at the career prospects in gaming, we have decided that okay, let's go and connect with some specialist in gaming industry and bring them on board so that our students, our shishyas learn more about the same course and requirements in the course and everything. उसको देखते हुए we connected with Majors Institute Singapore, which is going to give you international certification post the completion of this 5-day session. So let's get started today. And yes, your selfies have been really, really, really good. And we have been liking all the selfies and tag करते रहिए. So हम लोग उसको update करते रहे, and every day we have a new winner. Like Subhash sir's session, you will get a chance to interact with the speaker, interact and talk and ask your question, get your queries resolved directly from the speaker, and of course, come be a face on Vidyadaan. So let me call Mr. Alexander De La Cruz and Mr. Kelly Bender. Alexander, we have already met Alex last time on June 3rd. And I'd really like to tell you about Mr. Kelly Bender. He's a narrative and game designer of video games at Go Game. Kelly Bender is an award-winning professional creative writer with over 6 years of experience. He's written video games for so many clients, including Ubisoft, Disney, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon. I think these channels doesn't need any explanation, and so does Kelly. And he also created and written multiple original comic series and scripted ideas for film and TV. That's like a broad profile he has. And so let's have him here. So hi, Kelly. Hello, Alex.
Hello, hi, good afternoon.
I was trying to explain how and the reason why we connected with Majors and why gaming industry has become so powerful and looking at the prospects in the industry. So I have told my part that we wanted a specialist to come on board to give insights on gaming industry.
Fantastic, fantastic. And that definitely we will be doing, especially Mr. Kelly. He's the expert here between me and him. He is the expert. Just before that, I think, Pooja, one of the things I would want to highlight, especially from the first series that we have done, right? I would want to talk about a little bit of Mages, go deeper into it. I'll share my screen for give it a 5-6 minutes, guys. Bear with me on this, so that you'd be able to understand who we are as an institute, as somebody who has been in the animation and gaming field for a while. I'll share my screen, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Creating Tomorrow, Mages Institute. So, I mean, we are actually one of the private educational institutes here in Singapore. These are our certification. There's always the government certification, and of course the what do you call this? The EduTrust certification that is being given to all private educational institutes. Why Vidyadaan and Mages? I think that is very, very important. I think why did we have this kind of collaboration at first? Number one, industrial guidance. Both Vidyadaan and Mages are working very closely with the industry, and not just working with them, but making sure that we get the necessary inputs and we make sure that they are able to, give the necessary guidance on how we move forward with whatever course or even or master classes or every seminars that we are going to be conducting. Work experience in portfolio, that is what we focus on. As an institute and as an association, Vidyadaan, we want to make sure that all the participants, our students, our attendees would have that portfolio at the end of the day and the work experience that will make them employable. Experienced lecturer from the industry, just like Mr. Kelly, these are the kind of people that we bring on board, right? We make sure that our students will not be learning the theory side of it, but more on the practical application side, right? And as an institute here in Singapore, we also work with three to four universities right now where we have an articulation pathway to degree from the diploma, advanced diploma, then the degree. Location-wise, we are in the heart of Singapore. I think for some of you who have visited Singapore, we are in the Orchard area, right? Facilities, we have both software and hardware in place. So our student needs to come to Singapore as and when it is available now to travel to Singapore, right? But we do have our full setup of software and hardware. Uh, and then these are the verticals of our courses: game design, animation, communication design, and entertainment design. Some of the areas that we actually look into, right? The universities that we work with, Murdoch, that is in Australia. Academy of the Arts University is the one in San Francisco, California, and then Abertay University in UK, right? Okay, we have also won an award as an institute. One of our group of students have won mobile game of the year. Rookies, we make sure that they also join in some international competitions like rookies, right? We have also won Majors Institute of Excellence top 10 production excellence for mobile, especially on the gaming side, right? We are ranked actually third from globally, right? And then one of the few things that I would like to highlight here is in the midst of all this pandemic and the COVID-19, actually we have created a possibility for students, especially the ones who's overseas, to still be able to join our course with launching this diploma with online component. So what does it mean? First three modules will be taken online. Duration will be around 4 months. We are hoping that within that duration, students or after that 4 months, people would be able to fly in and out of their countries again, right? And then the rest will be continued here in Singapore when things come down. But if in case situation takes longer, or for some people who would really want to have a full online course, yes, you have that choice to still continue the rest of the module online. But one of the things that is really being highlighted here is how is your online course happening? Number one, our course are synchronous model. So it's real-time lecture. There's no pre-recording. All the classes will be recorded as a reference only for the students. But as and when it happens, it's real-time. Panels of seasoned industry mentors will also be there. Lecturer and classmate interaction definitely will be happening, right? And then all these reference material submissions will be done through our learning management system. And of course, since things are happening online, cost of living, huge savings on that. All right. So for any other promotions and any other materials that you guys would need, I'm flashing here my contact details, alex@majors.edu.sg. I'll put it on chat as well for your reference later on. Yeah. So without further ado, I don't want to take much time of Mr. Kelly. I think he's very, very excited to share with you guys all the information. Thank you very much again for Ms. Pooja, Vidyadaan, and of course MESCI for giving us this opportunity. Okay, I'll stop share now.
So guys, we will have Mr. Kelly Bender will go through your session. Keep making notes. You can send in your questions in Q&A section. We will try to answer all the questions. Okay, so let's get started.
All right, Kelly, take it away.
All right. Hi, everybody. I hope you're safe wherever you are. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to start this presentation. All right, so this is an introduction into game design. It's essentially game design 101. I'm going to walk over a lot of materials that you will learn in any game design course. It's basically a year's worth of information wrapped up in 45 minutes. If you do have a pen and pencil with you, you can play along and create your own paper pencil game. But if you don't and don't have access to it right now, that's fine. Just play along and you'll still learn a lot of stuff. So as I was said earlier, I have worked on many top brands and AAA games for Ubisoft. I worked on Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I've done mobile games for Go Game, for Disney, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network. I've also written comic books for Top Cow and done movie scripts as well. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna make and create a race to the end game. We've all played these types of games. It's like Candyland, Snakes and Ladders. Mario Kart is the exact example of it. It's basically go from A to B, whoever gets there first wins. So this is a course and a session that was created by Brenda Romero. I took her course back in 2019, and this is a concept of hers called the easiest game design exercise ever. And it really resonated with me, and it's a great teaching tool on how to learn about game design. So in order to do this, to make our first game, all you need is a pencil, a paper, a one dice, and anything like coins or anything to be used as players. In order to start, we're going to take our piece of paper and we're going to look at it like a playing surface. The red square is the playing surface, and what you're going to do is you're going to draw a line, and that line can be straight, it can be curved, it can be whatever shape this is. It can be a closed circle. It can be a triangle, or it could be a square. The one thing you can't do is if you're playing along is don't make it too small that it doesn't fit the playing surface. So if you are playing along, take a moment right now and draw any one of these shapes within that playing surface. This is the shape that I'm going to go with. It's a curved. And then if you are playing along and you've drawn your line, then what you're going to do is you're going to add a circle on either end of your line. And once you've done that, and so if you've done a closed one, you're going to put them side by side to connect it. Then once you've done that, you're going to draw another line connecting the other side of the circles. So it looks something like this. And once we've done that, what you're going to do is you're going to draw lines as separations within those lines. And it should be the same size or roughly the size of the playing piece, your quarter or your coin that you're using. Once you've done that, we're going to write start and finish on either end. It can look like this, or it could look like this. It doesn't matter, it's your game. This is what my game looks like. So once we've done that, what we've done is we've actually created the game world. Now the game world is the place where your game takes place. Very simple. Now, depending on what type of game you're making, it could look like this, it could look like this, it could look like this, or like this, or like this, or like this, if you're making a video game, or like this, if you're making an adventure game, or it could look like this. All of these are game worlds. And that's exactly what we've done. So, but what is a game world? Well, Brenda Romero describes it as, to put it simply, it's a game world is an artificial universe, an imaginative world in which the events of the game occur, right? To put it simply, the game world is the place where the events of the games take place. Okay, now depending on what type of game you're making will affect what type of game world you're building. Okay, for example, adventure game relies heavily on game world, where a chess simulator doesn't. Also, your video game world's dimensions will rely heavily on whether it's in 2D, 2.5D, or 3D. Okay, now the next part is, in order for a game world, is we have to add a theme. Okay, theme are the conditions in which the game takes place. Or in other words, we're missing narrative, we're missing story. Now we can make a game without narrative and without story, and it's certainly been done before. But that being said, even chess has a narrative. Even chess has a story. Each player and each piece has its own story. Okay, so Now we need to figure out what we're racing towards and what we're racing from. That is what our theme comes in. Now, the easiest way to do this is base our theme off a career. Okay, you could be a policeman racing towards a crime, or a robber trying to get away, or a doctor trying to perform a successful surgery, or a realtor trying to sell a property, or you could just be a cab driver trying to deliver somebody safe to their home. Okay, think about your game and what your game would like to be, and once you have it, you're going to add it to your game. Okay, so here's my game, and I'm pick my profession. I'm a pizza delivery person. So next thing we have to do is we have to think about what type of play are we going to have. And what do we mean when we say that? Well, to put it simply, the type of play is how the player interacts with the game, or how the game interacts with the player. Okay, there's various types of plays. There's player versus player. Okay, there's team competition, cooperative gameplay, unilateral, multilateral. There's all these different variations on ways that you can play the game, and the game can play with you. And for the sake of our game, we are going to pick a player versus player type game. It's quite simply, it's you versus your little brother or little sister. That's the kind of game we're going to have. So we're going to add that to our game right here in the bottom left hand corner. Next, we have to talk about game mechanics. Now, game mechanics are a particular rule or set of rules that produce a particular outcome. For our exercise, but once we talk about game mechanics, we also then have to talk about gameplay. Now, gameplay is what the player is going to do. Game mechanics are the rules, codes, and functions that allow it. Okay. Now, in our game, we talked about a dice. Okay. For this exercise, we're using the element of chance. So the dice is our game mechanic. It's the thing that the player is going to do that's going to make them move forward. So we're going to add it to our game. Now, once we have the game, what we're missing is obstacles. Games need obstacles. Players need something to prevent them, to avoid, to dodge, to anything. Can you imagine playing Donkey Kong if all you had to do was run up the ladders to save the princess? A game without obstacles is boring. Games need obstacles. So that's why in Donkey Kong, we had to avoid rolling barrels, fire, poison, all these things in order to save the princess. So we're going to look at our game. Now, how and where can we put obstacles? But it's really important to think about not where we're going to put them, but what obstacles as well, because both these things are very, very important. It's really important to think about where and why and what, right? So before we start doing that, we're going to talk about the greatest level boss in gaming history, in my opinion. And I'm not talking about this guy. I'm not talking about this guy. I'm not talking about this guy. I'm talking about this guy. Now, many of you don't recognize this guy, and there's a reason for it. It's because all those traumatic experiences playing the game, almost getting to the end, thinking you're going to win, and you land on this guy and you're sent back. Because this guy is the greatest villain in gaming history, in my opinion. He snatched success and wins from more people than any other person. So this is why it's really important where you place your obstacles and when you place your obstacles. Okay, these are very important things to think about, and also what your obstacles are. So we're going to look at my game. Where can we place these? Well, there's lots of different places, right? We can force the player to go back. We can make him miss a turn, and we can force the player to jump ahead. All these things are things you have to consider when you're building your game. It would also be a good idea to make your obstacles based off your theme. Penalties for, if I was a pizza delivery, let's say I land on one of these squares, one of my obstacles could be I have to, go back and return the pizza or get a new one. So what we've done is we've just created a game. Okay, we have essentially a playable game. It has theme, it has a beginning and an end, it has conflict, and it has a goal. Now, is it a great game? No. But how do we make a great game? An easy way to do that is we take the basic and make it more interesting. In video games, we call these power-ups. An interesting fact is that in gaming history, many people consider that this power-up was the first one to be used in games. And And Mario himself has had many, many power-ups throughout his career. So let's look at our game again. Imagine if you could land on a spot where you could draw a card, and the card, you could use it whenever you want it, and you can make it affect the player that you're playing against. Okay? The thing with this is that these power-ups, they add another element to games. They take away the chance of the dice or the lucky roll, and they add skill, they add strategy. It's no longer a game of chance. We've added complexity, strategy, and elements to our games. So what I've done is I've added spots on my game where the player lands on it, they will pick up a card, and the card will allow an action to occur. So this exercise is getting you to think about game design. But when we start talking about game design, we have to figure out what our game is about. And when you think about games and you think about what they're about, you get down to the core. What is the core of the game? Now, core is the one thing the game is about. A core loop is that one thing set in motion and over again. So let's look at the core loop of some actual games. So a letter game, for example, is you spell words, you beat levels, you unlock new levels. You spell words, you beat levels, you unlock new levels. This is the loop of that game, right? A puzzle game, collect clues, solve puzzles, unlock new puzzles. Okay, adventure game. You collect items, you get achievements, you unlock new achievements. Okay, even Starbucks has a core loop. Okay, you sign up for a membership, you get rewards, you buy coffee, and so on and so on. Okay, now what we're gonna do is look at some core loops of some games and try and figure them out, okay? Blank is about completing stages as fast as you can, okay? Well, that would be Sonic, or any racing game for matter, okay? Blank is about catching fictional creatures and training them to be the next best trainer. Well, that's Pokemon, okay? The next one, surviving war scenarios, competitive multiplayer, that's Call of Duty, or many, many variations of that type of gameplay. Blank is about defeating opponents by knocking them off platforms. Well, that's Super Smash Brothers. So these are the core of what these games are about, okay? So what is the core of my game? Well, my core loop is to deliver pizzas to customers, right? It goes right back to our theme. It goes right back to our message. And it's really important that your theme connects with your core loop. Once you establish your core loop, your team will need to figure out the feature sets. The feature sets is a list of features that you want implemented in the game. Okay, these are things that the player will be doing, whether it's running, jumping, diving, shooting, also what the player might be collecting, whether it's coins, avatars, you know, swords, you name it. These are all features. And this is really important. This is where you get with your team and you brainstorm about all the things that you want your game to be about. Its theme, its game world. These are all things that you use as references to figure out what features your game is going to have. But there's one important thing we haven't talked about yet, and that's setting. The game setting is where and when your game takes place. And it's very important to think about where you're setting, because your setting acts and defines the core features of your game. For example, for my game, a pizza delivery guy in space or 200 years in the past would require vastly different features than a pizza delivery guy that's set in modern time, or one set in the past. Likewise, consider how different these character types could affect the core and the features of your game. What if my pizza delivery guy was a ghost, or a time traveler, or a time traveling ghost? The game settings affect your features. So determining your game setting is also a great tool for brainstorming. Each new idea gives you new ways to interpret and suggest features to support the game's core loop. So whether your game's set on an island, the future, the past, these are all going to determine what features you're going to have in your game and what the player is going to be doing. Next, this right here is every game designer's secret weapon, the pen and the paper. Or you can use, you know, like a Microsoft Word document or something like that. But this right here is where your game should start. On the page, all your levels, all your core loops, all your ideas, all your stuff should start on an actual document or on the paper and not in the actual game, okay? The reason why, it's because it's cheaper, it's faster, and it's easier to solve problems on the paper than before you did with your game. So this is one example of one of mine. This is a region I did for a game that is launching end of June. And this is exactly what it looks like. This is what the world map in my head looks like. And once it's in the game, it'll look exactly like this. Of course, you'll have the terrain, you'll have the buildings, you'll have the castles, the dungeons, the caves, all those things. But this is essentially what it looks like. This is me mapping out the game. And so I have my conditions, I have my variables, these are all there. So before you launch and you start up and you jump in and dive into Unity or Unreal or any of these other game engines, it's really important for you to break down your game on paper, in theory, because it's so much easier to solve problems this way and less time consuming. No, you're not going to solve every problem. You just hope you do. So once we have our setting, we have to pick it. So I'm going to pick for my game, I'm going to pick a modern day city. Okay. This is going to be my setting. And once again, the setting dictates more than where your game takes place. It also dictates what your player is going to be doing. So looking at my game, I see something that doesn't fit with the modern day theme. War. That's more of a future term. So because now I have my setting, this is how it affects what our features and what our things are going to do, right? And what our player is going to be. So obviously we have to clearly change that. So we change it. These are things that will occur once you pick out your setting. Now, I have a modern day. So right now I have a modern day pizza game. Next, we're going to talk about our feature set. Now the feature set is, once again, it's the list of features that you want implemented in the game. Okay, it all relates to your core. And if we're going to play a game that features your profession in a setting you've selected, what would you expect to see? Okay, in mine, you would expect to see cars, you'd expect to see pizza, you'd expect to see buildings, you know. And you and your game design will begin by writing down all these things that you want in your game, no matter how trivial, unlikely, or odd it's going to seem. And once you have that list created, you're going to narrow it down to 4 or 5 key features, one of which must be the central mode of progression. Okay, so for my feature set and my mode of progression is I'm going to go from delivering pizzas by hand to delivering them on a bike, to delivering on a motorbike, to eventually delivering car. Now, the reason I would do it this way is because I can carry more, and that would be my progression. Okay, now you can start seeing my loop forming. This is my core loop, right? I'm going to deliver pizzas, I'm going to earn money, and I'm going to upgrade my vehicle. This is my core loop of my game. So let's add that to the game. Boom, there's my feature sets. And we also know what the core loop is. Now the next element we have to add to our game is characters. Now every game has characters, whether it's the chess pieces, whether it's the Trivial Pursuit, the Mahjong tiles, these are all characters in your game. Okay, in video games, we have tons of characters, and games are built around characters, and they become their own brands. So this is very important. This is why characters are very, very important. They need to be recognizable, and they need to be set to your theme. Okay, so there's 3 types of characters in games. There's the pre-established characters, such as Link. There's player created, and there's a combination. Now, in games, these are the 3 best examples I can find of the different versions. Okay, Mario is a great example of a pre-established character. Minecraft itself is a completely player-created experience, and Mass Effect and Commander Shepard is a great example of a combination. So for our characters, we have to go back to our theme, like our profession. So it's an easy way for us to create our characters because we have a theme, we already have our profession. So that's what we would do. We would sit down and we would create our characters. And it's very important to talk about characters. When we talk about characters, it's very important about diversity. It's very important about inclusion. And guys, I'm really talking to you. It's great to have female characters in your game. And everybody, I'm talking to everybody where it's great to have diversity. It's really important, and it's also important to let the player be able to choose their character, whether or not they want to be a female, male, be able to have to change their skin color on their avatar, all these things. So these are very important things for the player because it helps them immerse them into the game. So what we're going to do is now we're going to add our characters to our game. Boom, there they are. Now, next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about game mechanics. Okay, every game has mechanics that allows players to take actions, whether it's rolling a pair of dice or clicking a button to sell resources for money, whether it's an action like jumping, running, fighting, whatever it is. These are the meat of the gameplay. Okay, this is what the player is doing. Okay, now there's lots of different ways that you can have different mechanics. Okay, Mario had tons. Now, when you start looking at now with the Xbox and the PlayStation, there's so many different mechanics that are involved with what the player can do and how the player can experience the game. Okay, how you press a button affects the game by tapping on the mobile phone, whether it makes a character walk, sprint. These are all mechanics, and it's really important that you guys understand this. Okay, but then again, so are these. These are mechanics. These are other system mechanics. Okay, every item that's in the game, every avatar that's in the game, these are all types and forms of mechanics. So next we're going to talk about a game system. So what is a game system? Well, a game system is a player organized or designer created collection of game mechanics, which can be understood mostly in isolation from other systems and that can control a significant group of related, non-trivial behaviors of game toward a specific outcome. What? What does that mean? Like, I work in games and this definition still blows my mind. But the easiest way to understand what this definition is to break it down. So let's look at keywords in this definition. Let's look at mechanics. Game mechanics. So we just talked about that. Okay, we determine that a game mechanic is the name we give to a particular rule or set of rules which produces a particular outcome. For instance, taking turns is a mechanic. Running, jumping, shooting, fighting, these are all game mechanics. Okay, and they're all doing something for a particular outcome. Okay, other systems. Well, we talked about other systems, about what your player can wear, not wear, what weapons they can equip. Okay, how fast they can move. All these mechanics are collected to form what we call a character system. Now, these would be the other systems, but there's also a fighting system. There's a collection system, a reward system, a leaderboard system. These are all the other systems that we're talking about. Now, non-trivial behaviors. What are these? The best example of non-trivial behavior would be opening up a door or a treasure chest. Okay, do you open it normal? Do you unlock it? Do you hit it with a sword? These are the non-trivial behaviors that we talk about. Okay, they add more dimensions to your game. And when I'm talking about dimensions, I'm not talking about graphics. I'm talking about what the player can do. Okay, player organized or designer created collection of mechanics. Now, what is this? Well, player organized is what we call emergent gameplay. It means players have figured out how to make the game do something using existing mechanics that the designer never intended. Those are game breaks. Those are that's when you hack the game. Those are player organized. Okay, designer, that's quite easy. The designer designed it, you play it. It's quite simple. Okay. Now, when we think of mechanics in a game, we need to think about them like gears on a watch. All these parts doing their own thing, but are all connected together to make the whole thing work. Why do we break games down into systems? Because in most games, especially made by more than 1 or 2, 3, 4 people, each of these systems is created by a specialized person. Okay, an easier way to look at it is like this. Okay, making a game in their systems is like an assembly line making a car. Okay, one person makes the engine, one person makes tires, one person makes doors, and then what you do is you get them together and you put them together to make the whole car. It's an easy way to explain why we make them into systems. Now, remember when I talked about adding dimensions to your gameplay? Pong was a one-dimensional game. It had very little mechanics. You only really did one thing. But then again, running a race is a one-dimensional gameplay as well. Basically all you're doing is going from one spot to the next spot as fast as you can. But let's say we add obstacles. Now we got more dimensions to our game. Now we're running and jumping, running and jumping, running and jumping. And you can already see how the skill and the challenge and the difficulty level of the game already progresses just by adding one extra dimension. That's what Mario did. Mario was running, jumping. Okay, then eventually he added power-ups, he added all these other things. Just like this. you go from running a race to running a track race to all of a sudden doing an obstacle course. These are all adding different dimensions for the player and what the player is doing and how they're experiencing it. And this is how you end up with games like this. This is why in games you can do the parkour, you can run, you can jump, you can climb on pretty much anything. And these are things that hook the player. These are things that make the player want to play the game because it makes it feel more real. They get to do more things. Now, we've talked a lot about game mechanics, but this brings us to another thing about games, and it's game dynamics. So game mechanics are things the player does. Game dynamics are what happens when the player does them. It's an easy, simple definition. Board games allow us to visualize dynamics easy. They're the actual rules of the game. But if you've ever played a board game with your family, you know that rules change. There's family rules. And this is what allows the player to be immersed in it. Game dynamics and player dynamics are the things that the players can do with the game mechanics we've provided for them. Mechanics, dynamics, and systems are the building blocks for gameplay. These are the things that hold your game together. The more you let your player do, the more they will experiment and interpret how things are done, which makes for some very interesting experiences with what comes to the player. When I worked on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for example, it was a wide open world, so the player could literally go anywhere and climb on anything, which made for an amazing moments in games, but it also made the game feel open, alive, and the player free. But remember this part, when we talk about game systems, the player organized. But here's the thing, what we didn't take into account was that the game world was filled with massive statues. And being historically accurate, that means these giant statues were of naked people. So we ended up with images like this, and they went viral. And this is where the player can do things that you're not, we never expected this. This is the player immersion gameplay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add game mechanics to our game. Boom, there it is. Now, the next phase for our game is about testing. Now, what testing does is it looks for bugs. Now, there's 3 types of bugs in your game. There's type A bugs, which are critical. These are the type of bugs that would prevent your game from shipping. Example, the game crashes when loads, it freezes. Certain mechanics just don't interact with each other, okay? Type 2, these bugs are essential bugs. These are bugs that it means the game is still playable, but the player can't jump high enough to get out of a ditch, or they get trapped in some place, right? These are, or we need to balance out the game system and the game rewards. So for example, the player's not getting enough money to get to the next level. These are essential bugs. Now, type C bugs, these are obscure bugs, okay? These tend to come in the form of a recommendation more than anything else. Example, I got lost, and I think there should be a sign point or point of interest in this particular quest, or the dialogue wasn't as informative as it needed to be. So these are the types of bugs that are looked for, and game testing is 100% extremely important and very critical. So let's look at my game. Can we see a bug or flaw in my game anywhere? Right there it is. We have an infinity loop where if the player lands on it, they move forward 2 spaces, but then they're forced to go back 2 spaces. So this would be a critical bug. So we have to remove it. So there we go. So this is how the player sees the game, okay? But it's also how the voice actor, the sound person, the cinematographer, the lighting person, this is how they see the game. They see the trees, the rocks, the terrain, the obstacles, but this isn't how a game designer sees the game. This is how a game designer sees the game. They see all the game systems, art assets, mechanics, dynamics, etc. at their disposal, and all the things that the player can and can't do with them. Now, this is how a narrative designer sees the game. We see everything a game designer does, but we have the ability to see the branching patterns of the narrative and the dialogue along with it. Now, as a game designer, you need to see your game for what it truly is. It's a collection of rules, systems, mechanics, loops, features, characters, dynamics, obstacles, themes, power-ups that all comprise to make up your game. Now, we have a complete game. All we have to do is name it, design a logo, put the packaging on, box it up, and it's ready to be launched. Now, is the game we made today a unicorn? Is it $1 million game? No, it's not. But it is a game. And now that we've made a game, we can make another one. And here's the good news. You've made a game. Not many people can even say that. So if you played along and you made a paper game with me, you've made a game. It is. You have a game, you can play it, you can sit down, roll the dice, and get to the end. But the thing is that one game leads to your next game and your next game and the next thing. And next thing you know, you have a career. And you have a career built doing something you love. And hopefully you've created games that you're proud of and that people enjoy. It's all about leveling up in this industry, going from one stage in your career to the next stage and so on. Making your own game, working with an indie studio, working at a AAA studio, starting your own studio. The beauty of working in games is that not one game is the same. And neither is each experience making them. Every game has its own unique problems and solutions that will occur during the process. And that is game design. So I think what we'll do is we'll open it up to questions now. How are we going to do this, guys?
Nice. It was really good. You taught us how to make a game on a paper, and then we can go digital and design it. I think all the animation designing and will get involved and get the game created. So it's basically like somebody conceptualized the game, and then somebody designs it, and then somebody develops it, right?
It all depends. So in a big studio, that's exactly what happens. In small studios, you wear many hats. You tend to be everybody. So yeah, so it all depends. I mean, concepts and ideas can come from anyone and anywhere. The best advice I can say is you're going to make a game, make it about something you are passionate about, because you're going to spend a lot of time making it. So don't make a game just because you think it's going to be a big hit. Make a game because you want to make a game about something.
Like when we talk about, say, 15, 20, 25 years back, or say 30, 40 years back, there were very few games. The board games were there, and what do you call it? The Ludo, the Snakes and Ladders, Pokemon is a very, very old game. The chess, these board games we usually used to play. But nowadays, with the digitalization, we have all the games, even Ludo and all of them are back on digital platform. So they are digital games, and during this social distancing, we call it distant socializing now. From a different countries, we can play together. So how many segments are there, if you can answer that? Like I've said, somebody conceptualize it, then you need animators to design it, then you need a development team, or how it goes?
So the good news is with a lot of these game engines, they already have, like, so for example, Unreal or Unity, they already have the program. So you can download Unity right now for free, and you can honestly start designing immediately. Now, of course, it's going to take time, and it's going to take there's a steep learning curve, but a lot of these engines already have assets. So they're just assets you can pay for, or there's free assets that you can just plop in. So you don't even need an artist anymore. If you just want to make your own game. Now, if you want to build your own game, then obviously you're going to need a designer, you're going to need a programmer, you need a coder, you're going to need an artist, an animator, all these things. So it all depends on what you want to make and how you're going to get there. Any game design course in the world will teach you how to do these things. Now, of course, you're not always going to be artists, which is, you could tell from my my presentation, I'm not an artist. but I can tell an artist what to draw, what to design, to get exactly what we need. And so that's where it essentially is a team effort.
It's a team effort, yes. So what I'm just thinking about is, so there's a lot of requirement as well for all the segments, starting from a person who will conceptualize it and to developing and then adding them on Play Store or somewhere so people can buy your game, and then doing the refreshments and development is a continuous process, or do you actually pause it somewhere on some level or something?
I mean, games are an ongoing thing. You constantly have to update it. You constantly have to, you're constantly doing updates. There's constantly bugs. So every time Apple has a new operating system, you need to you need to keep up with it, right? And also, you want to keep the player engaged. So you are constantly doing weekly events, monthly events. And when you build your game, you're not building it for a one-time thing. I mean, you can, but a mobile game, for example, you're building it for long term. You're building it to hopefully last 5 years, and so you need content for that. You need a strategy for that. So you constantly are just updating things and going with it. So people think like when I'm a narrative designer, like I'm just there at the beginning. I come up with the game concept. I come up with the game design. I work with the programmers and designers to figure out what game engine we want to use and what dynamics we want to use. And then I write the story, and then they think that's it. But I'm there the entire time. I'm there all the way to launch, because you have to write features for the Apple Store. You have to create trailers. You have to market it, promote it. Facebook page. All these things are story and involve the narrator. So and I'm also looking at content for 6 months after the game launched. So that there's constant stuff you just constantly are doing. And then also you're also working on the next game, and the next game, and the next game. So it should be eventually an effect where you're in a studio where every 6 months a new game comes out. A new game launches, game comes out, game launches, game comes out. And that's hopefully how you create a successful studio.
Okay, so what I, it was coming to my mind, like when we make a movie, a filmmaker makes a movie and it goes to the audience, and his job over there, promotion and everything, it ends when the movie releases, and then it's the feedback that's coming up, and then they'll go to the next feature film or television or series. But in game design, if it's design, you have to continuously keep on working to keep your audience engaged. So
Yeah, I would equate a game, like there is games like a movie where it is just hey, here's the game, here's the story, boom, it's done. No downloadable content, no updates. Those games I would consider more like a movie, where a mobile game is more like a TV series where it's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing living thing that you constantly have to provide more content for.
and then it becomes a habit of a person.
Yeah,
For ending
exactly.
the day, they'll play the game, and few people even wake up and then just finish one level and then go back to their daily course.
Yeah, and so we call that player attention, and that's what we live for. We live for player attention. We want the player to constantly check their phone and play the game. Whether it's on the bus to work, whether it's their lunch break, coffee break, whatever. We want that. We want the player to keep constantly coming back to our game.
Okay, that's why you keep on adding. How different is it? I have a question here. How different it is for a 2D and a 3D game? I'm not sure if 3D games are available on, they're not coming on mobile as of now. Do
Yeah.
you see the future of 3D games coming to your mobile phone?
I mean, there already is a lot of 3D games. You can also use virtual reality on your phone now. And that's immersed 3D. So it is there. The difference, to be honest with you, is cost. When it comes to a studio, it also is time. There's more stuff involved, and you need more specialists to do it, right? So if only you know how to make 2D games, then keep making 2D games. There's tons of studios that they're not trying to make AAA, games to compete with Assassin's Creed or Grand Theft Auto. They're making games that they're passionate about and that they enjoy, right? And then that's the key, is that there's always going to be a home for, even just like you said earlier, like chess. Like chess is still there, and then there's also battle chess, and there's different iterations of chess. There's 3D chess, virtual reality chess. So it's a good gameplay is going to resonate with the player regardless of what dimension it's in.
I, I,
I
I
think apart from Apart from that, I think just to add, Pooja, I think it depends on the segment, the target market. Again, whether it's a game or a film, you do have a specific segment that you want to target once you launch something. Like a movie or a game, there are a lot of people who still sticking to 2D. There's still a lot of people, more of the younger generation, are looking more towards 3D, and of course the virtual reality. So AR and VR sort of thing. So I think it all depends on the segmentation of your targeting. As you plan the game, just like what Kelly have said, it all starts with an idea, then the production, then the post production, which will involve marketing, all that sort of thing, and of course the monetization and all, right? Which will include also the next level, and if you want it, depending on how the market will actually what do you call this, react onto the game that you have launched.
Okay, I have another question. They're saying, like Oscars are for films. What awards are there for gaming?
Oh, there's lots of awards. E3 is like E3 is like it's a big conference that we do, but there is lots of awards, and in fact, games are being recognized by the Screen Actors Guild Awards now. Which is very a great nod to the hard work and where gamings are, where they are being respected. I would like eventually if they should be involved with the Golden Globes or with even a portion of the Oscars eventually. It's just different ways to entertain people, and when you write a script, you are writing a movie script. It is big, massive. It's in fact I think it's even bigger than a movie script, because especially for open world games, where I have to write the scene 7 times. I have to write, like, have I met you? Have I not met you? Have you told me about your missing dog? Have I found your missing dog? Have I accidentally killed your missing dog? Have I returned your dog? And have you given me your reward? These are all things I have to write every single time a player interacts with another character, because this is what the player wants. They want real, they want choices, they want decision making. And so eventually you're going to get a point where these scripts are going to be thousands of pages long, because the player wants this. The player wants to have choices that matter. And then and if you're going to have choices that matter, then you're going to have outcomes. You're going to have to make it matter. So you're going to have 20 different versions of an ending because of the player's decisions and choices.
So basically, it goes like a flow chart. Yes, no. If yes, then this. Then if it's no, then this, and then the series continues.
Yeah, it's all conditions and variables.
It's like an open flow chart, which is going continuously.
Yeah, essentially, we call that branching dialogue. But yeah, it's all a collection of variables. There's hubs, which are question hubs, reaction hubs. There's also variables of yes, no. So yeah, it's very detailed.
How important is it to do? Okay, the question here is how important it is to do internship before before getting hired in a studio. Do you think a fresher go to for internship?
100%. I think it's important. But it's also like when you go to school, you have that's part of your when you're taking a game design course, you're asked to do internships, and it's very important. It's you're learning on the job, and you're learning things that you're not going to learn in class. So whenever we have interns come into our studio, I always talk to them, and I always introduce myself, and I'm like don't be afraid to ask questions, because what's going to happen is we're going to assign them something, and I'm going to tell them to do something, and unfortunately, when I tell them to do something, it's an order. It's not a request. You know what I mean? Because I need it done. I need it done now. But if they need to understand why I'm asking them that, ask it. Like I'm essentially your teacher. When you're in an intern and you come to a game design studio, we're essentially your teachers for those days, and you're there to learn. And but if you're there and your headphones are on the entire time and you're just listening to music or watching YouTube when you're there, I'm like take your headphones off. Like I love the sound of a game design studio when it's working, because it's constant like busy motion, right? It's this and that. Like I as a writer and a narrative designer, I'm looking at words all day. I'm looking at a white a white screen with colored words. That's what I'm looking at. And I love walking around my studio and just looking at what the artist is doing and seeing the character that I designed and I wrote and created in 3D animation, you know, and seeing it happen. And so it's very important to be an intern. It's vital because you learn the ins and out of the game, and also you get a realization of what it would be like to actually work there. So the culture of the studio you work on is just as important as the games you're designing, because you want to work together as a team and you want to be connected together.
Okay, and apart from, I think, internship, even the apprenticeship opportunities, if given to a fresher who has just come out of his institution or university or college after completing the course, I think that can also be beneficial for a long time career in gaming, right?
Yeah, of course. Any chance to get in the door, even just you get done, and let's say, I mean, game studios are hiring all the time. Like there's an endless list of job opportunities. Now that being said, you might graduate as like a 3D animator and get hired by a game studio, but they might hire you just because they need bodies and say, okay, we're going to train you now to be a cinematographer or a lighting guy, or there's people at AAA games who all their job is making water. They're rendering water all day long. That's what they're doing, because that's the kind of games they're making. Is they want realistic water. They want, so for example, those statues. There was a guy who made all those statues, and that was his job. But he also can do other things. But when you're in a big studio, you tend to be specialized, because that's what they need. They need a specialized person to do this. Okay, you know, you're making mufflers today. You know, you know, and I know you're trained to make a car, but we need you to make mufflers. And that's what happens. And then eventually you'll progress within that studio to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. But if you're in a small studio, you'll be asked to be a game designer, which could encompass a lot of things.
Okay, so let's take just maybe just two more questions here. Okay, I have Harsh Mangal. He's asking, as game designing is a very tough job to do, how to manage keep working without getting too much pressurized of affecting our work? How to like stay, stay stress free, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I know exactly where he's coming from, because it is a very stressful industry. It's also a very thankless industry. The best way to describe designing games is, imagine we have the shell of an airplane. We've pushed it off the side of a cliff. It's falling, and everybody in the airplane is trying to build it before it hits the ground. That's essentially what you're doing when you're building a game. That's exactly what it feels like. Some moments it feels like the New York Stock Exchange, where it's just mad craziness, and we're waiting for one asset from one person to get done, and then we all scatter back to our desks and do that thing. Just the love of the game, to be honest with you. I love Zelda. I love playing Zelda, but I also know I would never want to work on a Zelda game because of the fact that you're in it so much that it would be frustration. It would be total frustration. So it's really just being passionate about what you're doing, knowing that you're doing a good job, knowing that you're part of a team. And I always, with my team, I always make sure I'm thanking them when, like example in Ubisoft, we had a guy who worked for almost 2 years on an island, and he literal island in the ocean when he was building the game. And we realized, I mean, it wasn't my call, but it was the company realized that, wait a minute, the player's not going to go to this island. There's no way to get them to this island. So they actually sunk it. They sunk his island. And it wasn't because it wasn't good. It wasn't because it wasn't of quality. It's because the player would just not travel there. It was flowed wrong. And because it was based off a real location, we couldn't just put that island in another location. So yeah, so all of his quests were gone. All of that hard work, all 2 years of hard work were gone. But it's not because it wasn't good. And that's the thing. I'm the guy who has to make those decisions in my studio. I'm the guy who says no, and I don't always have time to explain it. But I always tell my guys that they did a great job. And yeah, it is a thankless job, but it's a well-paying job, which is great. And it's also a rewarding job because of the work you're doing.
Okay.
Okay, great. Just a last question before we end this session. Okay. I'm getting a lot of questions. Okay. Just to give a gist of the session, I'll say Ajay Majhi was saying what exactly the term game designing, game programming, and game development mean. If you can differentiate these in easy language.
Uh, it's honestly, a lot of it covers the entire thing. You're a game designer, so I don't have game programming. I don't know any of that stuff. I'm a game designer, but I can't do any of the technical side. So that makes me a game designer. Now, a game programmer would have all the technical aspects. They have the knowledge there
Backend.
and the use of it. And then a game producer is somebody who has all those knowledge. But that being said, I know game producers who have no technical knowledge, but they have the other aspects, right? So it all depends on what studio you're at, what you're doing. It also depends on if you get a promotion. It depends on your company scaling system. There's lots of things. A lot of guys just refer to themselves as game designers, and they'll always just be a game designer, and they're actually associate producers, but that's their title, but they're still game designers, and they're still in there, they're still in the trenches, and that's what they love doing. I mean, Alex can answer it more on a schooling side.
Actually, as far as the school is concerned, game designer are more the ones looking into the flow, a bit of the art, right? A bit of art, and but it's mostly the flow, just like what Kelly's doing, looking into the whole structure of the game. Game programming is basically just the back end. It's looking into the codes. It's looking into the language that are being used, or more towards the game engine. Game development, on the other hand, now is like the whole combination of it. The combination of the programming and the art coming together, that we look at the game development. It's more of the term that they use when you're looking at the entire output. But design is more in the art, and then programming is more in the back end, front end, back end, basically.
Okay, great. With this, I'd like to thank you. Thanks, Kelly and Alex, for being here with us
Thank you.
in this session. And I'd like to mention about the next session, that is for how to approach a character animation short. Again, with Ms. Amita Segal will be there on 10th of June, 12:30 p.m. Guys, this is a series going on of various webinars for you. So do attend all the sessions so you can get benefit. And as we do have a selfie winner today as well, we have also received many selfies of this session as well. So we'll be uploading them, and I'm sure everybody will be tagging us. So I'd like to announce the selfie winner for today is Amrendra Joshi. Amrendra Joshi, congratulations for your lovely selfie and tagging Media and Entertainment Skills Council and Vidyadaan. Our Creative Me program, or you call it a campaign, is going on. So make a video from your mobile phone at home and showcase your creative skills. Post the video on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok account, wherever. All the social media handles are available of Media and Entertainment Skills Council and Vidyadaan. Show us your creativity. Even here, when Kelly was asking you to do it on the paper, so if you design something on your paper, you can even click that picture and upload it on social media. We'd love to see your work. Okay. So even in the next session, we can take it forward, and we will have those, your work broadcasted on screen. Now, June 8th, we'll have Mr. Ashutosh Sharma back with us with social media marketing session. And it's going to be a lovely session because we have learned a lot in last two sessions as well. And last day of smartphone filmmaking will be on June 9th. Yes, that's the day 3 and final day of smartphone filmmaking with Ritesh Sunday at 11 a.m. on June 9th. So Monday to Saturday. You can book your calendar from 11 to 2 because we have different times. And so do attend this session. June 10th, we will be back with the session for animation and game design here with Majors Institute of Excellence. So with this, I'd like to say thanks everybody. I'd like to thank Alex. I'd like to thank Majors. And of course, the lovely audience. Your feedback is really important to us. And as I was getting the message also to share the feedback link, so you can email your feedback to vidyadaan@mescindia.org. Do like, subscribe, and share our on social media handles of Media and Entertainment Skills Council. We'll see and have a good weekend. Enjoy, stay safe, stay responsible, and stay healthy. We all see you on Monday morning, 11:30 a.m. All
Okay,
right.
bye. Enjoy your weekend, guys. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.